and the confidence you have invested in me. I will never forget Master, an elderly gentleman leaving the polling station on election day and waving his ink-stained hands at me, saying, Andrew, do the right thing. Today, I am very proud to report to this country that we have been doing the right thing by Jamaica. We have been building roads and bridges like no other government has. We have been increasing access to water. In over 4.5 years, 22,000 Jamaicans have had the chance not to rent, but to own their own homes. We have created over 100,000 jobs. Poverty is at its lowest in 10 years. We've increased the school feeding program from 3 days to 5 days. We have made massive investments in security to equip our security and increase their presence in your community. But the greatest achievement, I believe, is that in 3 of our 5 budgets, we have either had no new taxes, or we have given back taxes that Dr. Peter Papa Tax Phillips had placed on you. 5 budgets, when you take them cumulatively, we have net given back taxes. That has never happened in the history of Jamaica. We have been good stewards of your affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Holness. Our first question tonight comes from Dion Jackson Miller from the RGR Gleaner Communications Group, and it will be directed to Dr. Phillips.
Dr. Phillips, in a statement on July 23rd, you spoke of states of emergency as involving, quote, prolonged wholesale infringement of the rights of Jamaicans, end quote. Now, you did vote to end an SOE back in December 2018, but every other time you voted with the government to extend them. How does Jamaica trust you with leadership when your own voting record on a matter of fundamental rights accords with the popular choice rather than the principle that you yourself say you espouse?
There are 2 principles that were at stake. One is the obvious need to have a response to the problem of mounting crime. The government refused to provide any other alternative. We continue to make our case to them while at the same time advocating a different approach to the whole question of crime control and murder control. And so we believe that there is a way other than a way relying on the states of emergency to deal with hotspot policing, intelligence-led policing, and one which recognizes the rights of citizens. It's a difficult choice, but we ended up making the right one.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Mr. Holness, your rebuttal.
Look, let's just face the facts. The truth is that the people called for the states of public emergency. I remember very well the first time that the PNP voted to end the states of public emergency in St. James. It was grief and panic. The truth is that they very well know that the SOEs have been very effective in controlling the murder and crime pandemic. It has flattened the murder curve in Jamaica.
Thank you, Mr. Holness. And now George Davis will pose a question to Mr. Andrew Holness.
Mr. Holness, in the Education Ministry's 2019 high school rankings, the percentage of schools with students passing at least 5 C6 subjects ranged from 100% at Campion to 0.8% for the lowest ranked school. Of the 161 schools listed, 91 had less than 20% passes. And while the top 10 averaged over 90% passes, the bottom 10 averaged under 2% passes. How then do you propose to create a more equitable education system?
Thanks for that question, George. The first thing that we need to ensure is that all children going into primary school get into primary school at the same window. So you have to level the playing field starting at the early childhood level. And so we know what to do in terms of the investment in education, and that is well underway. The second thing that you have to do is ensure that students at the primary level develop the critical skills of literacy, numeracy, and in today's world, digital numeracy, so that they are able to access the curriculum at the secondary level, which is why my government emphasized literacy and numeracy at the grade 4 level. We made it a national priority. We moved the literacy rate at grade 4 from 50%, which we took it, to in the region of between 85 and 90%. Since then, things have floundered, but the government of the Jamaica Labour Party is now putting in place a commission to review our entire education system to ensure that our children get equal access to good education at all levels of the education system, to enable them to not just regurgitate, but to enable them to think critically and be creative and productive citizens.
Dr. Peter Phillips, your rebuttal.
What is clear is that after 4.5 years, the government has still failed to do the simplest thing, which is to utilize up-to-date modern technologies in the schools.
Dr. Phillips. Marjorie Gordon of Nationwide News Network has been working the social media beat, and she has a question right now.
Right now on social media, Omar Yard wants to know, if you become the next prime minister, will you have fixed election dates and term limits?
And that question is to you, Dr. Phillips.
The country needs to explore this question of fixed election dates. We are prepared to move down that track and develop the legislature. I would point out that this was a commitment that the current government gave before this current term. Nothing has been done in that regard, as they have failed to act also on the question of impeachment or the provision of job descriptions for ministers. The failure to provide job descriptions for ministers has resulted in the worst wave of corrupt behavior and thievery in government that this country has seen in its entire post-independence.
Marjorie Gordon of Nationwide News Network,
you have an opportunity to respond to that
social media beat.
Fixed election dates remain an aspiration of this government.
Social media, Omar Yard wants to know, if you become the next prime minister, will you have fixed
the
election
development
dates
and
and
the
term limits?
execution of a
And that
grand
question is to you, Dr. Phillips.
as it relates to
The
issues
country
such
needs
as
to explore this
job
Can you hear
description.
okay properly?
You know,
Yeah.
many persons would know
down
this,
that track and develop
but
the
our
legislature.
cabinet
I would point out that
each
this
retreat
was a commitment that the
requires
current government
each
gave
minister
in the
to develop a work
before
plan,
this current
which
term.
I
Nothing has
personally
been done in
review,
that regard,
monitor,
as
and
they have
evaluate.
failed to act also
And in addition
on the
to
question of
that, but
impeachment
we
or
have
the
put in place
provision
a training
of
system
job
where our
descriptions for
ministers
ministers.
participate
The failure to
in
provide
training,
job
in
descriptions for
public affairs
ministers
management,
has
and
resulted
training
in
in
the
good
worst
governance.
wave of
So we have
corrupt
done
behavior
far more
and
than
thievery in government that
a
this
job
country has
description on a
seen
piece of
in its
paper. We have
entire
put that into action,
post-independence history.
and you have seen the results.
Mr.
I
Holness,
stand here
you have an
on a
opportunity to respond to that
platform
question as
of
well.
performance, of delivery. He has been saying
of this government.
all kinds of things about the
So
government,
too
but he
are
cannot say
our
that
commitments
this
regarding
government has not delivered,
the
even on
development
things
and the
which they
execution
started
of a
and
grand
did not
referendum.
complete.
As it relates
Thank
to
you,
issues
gentlemen.
such as
And we now
job
take our
description.
first break
You know,
in this
not many persons
national
would know
leadership debate.
but
Please
our
stay with
cabinet
us.
at each retreat requires each minister.
The general
Okay,
election
Anil.
debates are presented by
Yeah, I'm here.
the Jamaica Debates
Yes.
Commission in
I'm
association
just
with
hearing some.
Prudence,
Are you hearing two sounds or are you hearing one
National
sound?
Democratic Institute,
may not know.
Digicel.
No, I'm hearing one sound. Before,
Which is a commercial now, yes?
no, I'm just hearing Andrew right now.
Really? Are you seeing something like a commercial going on?
No, that happened like probably about a couple seconds ago, but I think that has cleared up.
All right, let me just clear this out. 'Cause I don't know what's happening there. Okay, good.
And now it's just you and I.
Okay, fantastic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, myself and O'Neill cross the Atlantic in the UK and Jamaica and the States. Virginia, yes?
It's Virginia.
Yeah, we say we're just gonna come on and do a late night watch. You know, I've got my popcorn.
Yeah, I got my popcorn is somewhere, but I got my water.
I'm in Jamaica, so I have my cola champagne, just like.
Oh, that's nice.
So but why we do that? Let me just What's your thoughts on it so far, Anil?
So far, I think what I'm hearing, the rebuttals, right? So it seems the questions are coming in, where Minister Phillips is talking about his version, and the current Prime Minister is talking about their aspiration. And I jotted down a couple of things that I thought, crime control seems to kick off the day. There was a question around Minister Peter Phillips and his support for the SEOs.
Yes.
And I like his answer. He's like, for us, it was a mean to work with the government in order to ensure that our citizenry in these communities are safe.
Yes.
So I like that answer.
Jamaica, home of the
and then we have the whole issue around
a people and a nation who achieved and defied all.
So I think you have the coming out. But the other thing was around education, which was an interesting exchange between the two parties. And I think Minister Phillip made the argument that there's not enough digital resources that has been provided by the current government. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But that was an interesting point that he made. And it seems educational reform is something that is top of mind, especially in the COVID era that we're in. And I think we have touched on the topic that if you look across Jamaica, right, if you're going to go to a virtual school, there are many students who don't have the resources. And especially if you have a household, for example, that have 3 kids and 1 laptop, how are you going to do virtual schooling, right?
Yes.
So it seems that there's a point of view around that before the break. But it seems like there's a good banter between what Dr. Peter Phillips is talking about, some of the what he called the gaps in terms of what the government has done, and Prime Minister Holness talking about here's the things that we're done. But I think so far is good dialogue between both, and the Prime Minister is talking about his position, and of course the opposition is going through what are the things that they would do differently.
Yes. Someone just asked me a while ago, like, who's winning so far, and I said, I find it difficult sometimes to say who win elections, who win these rounds. A knockout punch. I mean, to say you're gonna have a lady walking past shortly, with a sign saying round 1. I always say to people all the while that when the last debate, which was, I'm just putting this in just to make sure we don't miss out when it starts again. Let me just,
Hello.
Are you hearing anything?
It's all advertisement that are.
Are you hearing anything?
No, nothing from the candidates, just advertisement.
Okay. Right. So I always say it's difficult sometimes to say who win. Because a PNP person will always say the PNP win, and a PNP person will always say the PNP win.
I think this is one of the moments where you have to listen critically. Right, you have to listen critically to each of the candidates.
Yes.
The current Prime Minister, he's running on his current record of what he has done for the Jamaican people. And he has to articulate what is his aspiration for the next numerous years. So for him, why should the Jamaican people entrust him with another X number of years? And the opposition party, Dr. Peter Phillips, is making the case of why you should make the switch.
Mm. Mm.
And I think the couple of things that I've heard, especially in the open statement for the Prime Minister, he talks about roads, he talks about housing, he talks about lifting people out of poverty, right? So the question for the other side is, what is it you're going to do differently? And security is one of the number one sort of topic that it's top of mind, I would believe, for a lot of Jamaicans.
Yes, yes.
And the interesting piece that I would love to hear, and I hope we'll hear that in the next segment, is around the whole COVID-19, because there are a lot of Jamaicans that are scared, and they don't know what's next. And I do believe, regardless of party, the current administration has done a pretty good job of keeping the narrative around what they're doing around the whole COVID response top of mind in Jamaica. They've been providing a lot of information. So the question for the opposition would be what they would do different.
Yes.
So if they take over, what would they do different?
Our country. Let's all feel good again. Whether it's that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just monitoring the next. Okay, it's starting now. So let me just get this back going.
Yeah.
Or friends, we want you to enjoy your staycation.
We have to ensure that they are comfortable, well protected.
New standards are in place to ensure your safety.
Sometimes there's this delay.
Serve you better. So you can have the best experience. Come out and rediscover Jamaica.
We are ready. We are ready.
We are ready.
Rediscover Jamaica.
Heartbeat of the world.
NCB, Anjam, UWI, JM Group, and Victoria Mutual Group. Watch.
Hello.
Listen, decide, vote.
Okay. You can see it now. It's there now. Yeah.
Yeah. There's some advertisement.
A series of 3 political debates being facilitated by the Jamaica Debates Commission, a partnership of the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce and
Can you see it now? Is it back now? Yeah.
Yeah. It just there's advertisement going on right now.
Oh wow.
We'll begin this segment with Dion Jackson Miller of the RGR Gleaner Communications Group, directing her question to Mr. Andrew Holt.
Yeah, those are no, it hasn't come back yet.
There it is now.
Go on.
There you go.
With going back to school, we must go on with going to the market.
This would
Thank
be
you.
Move ahead with our society.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holness. Dr. Phillips, your rebuttal.
I think the most disturbing thing about the recent handling of the spike in cases is the disregard that has been given to the scientific advice of the medical personnel. In the period of the Emancipendence celebrations, the recommendation was made that there should be a tightening of the arrangements, the curfew arrangements and the other arrangements. That was ignored. The consequence has been devastating on the people of Jamaica. Yes, there will be a pandemic, but there's no need to ignore proper advice. There's no need to ignore common sense, and there is every need to protect the people of the country.
Thank you very much, Dr. Phillips. Dion Jackson Miller has a follow-up question for Mr. Andrew Holness.
Not talking about calling the election, Mr. Holness. Don't you think that campaigning in the way you did facilitated the spread of the virus?
Absolutely not. Indeed, what I did as Prime Minister, I acquired over 500,000 masks, and I personally distributed over 80,000 masks. Wherever I went, I made sure to play a public service announcement, giving directions to persons how they should operate and how they should behave. Listen, Dion, the truth is, even points being made regarding disregarding the scientific advice. We are now in the phase of the pandemic where the society has to learn to live with the disease.
Thank you.
The government has put in place all the measures necessary to ensure that it is
Thank
safe
you.
for the people of Jamaica to campaign
Mr. Holness.
and safe to vote and
Mr.
safe
Holness,
to go out and work
you.
and do business.
George Davis, your question to Dr. Peter Phillips.
Dr. Phillips, a few months ago, the nation prayed as you took time off to deal with cancer. As you continue your treatment and recovery, how should Jamaicans reconcile the status of your health when considering whether to vote PNP so you can be Prime Minister for the next 5 years?
Well, the first point I would make is that my treatment is over. I am cancer-free, and I thank God for that opportunity. At the present time, I think we have to recognize that what I am called upon to do is to operate with the best of my ability, to give of myself, as I have done at every stage in my public service career. I come here with clean hands. In an earlier phase, I had the opportunity as a very young man to coordinate the construction of 10,000 houses in Portmore. I had opportunities subsequently to establish the JUTC, to establish the route taxi system. I have subsequently had opportunity as a more mature person to rescue Jamaica's economy from the chaos in which it was left by the then JLP administration in the period 2007 to 2011. Now, I am prepared to give service again as long as the Almighty permits it and my health enables it. And as of now, my health is in perfect condition.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Your rebuttal, Mr. Holness.
Well, I'm happy to hear that the leader of the opposition is cancer-free. The truth is as well, you know, my hands are clean. I have worked hard. I have presided over the construction of 22,000 housing solutions and more. You know, I've had the opportunity to be Minister of Education, to really make profound and fundamental changes in education. As Prime Minister, I'm also a minister, and I have presided over the construction of more roads in Jamaica than any other government in, you know, the recent history of Jamaica, including completing projects that started under his administration, which they didn't complete.
Thank you.
So I can't see why
Thank you,
he
Mr.
would
Holness.
want now to come and
Marjorie,
make a case.
Marjorie Gordon is on the social media beat, and she has another question.
Thanks, Dervin. On Twitter, they're asking, if you form the next government, what concrete steps will you take to protect the watershed areas, especially since drought conditions are exacerbated every year?
Mr. Holness.
Thank you for that question. We are the party that have taken the greatest steps to protect our environment, including our watershed. And the one that I want to point out is what we have done in protecting the biggest watershed in Jamaica, which is the cockpit country. We are the political party that took this matter by the scruff of the neck and made it possible. We got it done. For decades, that dithered under previous administrations. We got it done. And we will continue working with our international partners. I personally have taken a lead role in climate change matters, and we have been receiving great support from our international partners through climate change funds and other funds to protect our watersheds and to create a government that is responsive and resilient as it relates to the environment and natural disasters.
Thank you, Mr. Holness. You also get an opportunity to respond to that social media question, Dr. Phillips.
I think Jamaica owes a debt of gratitude to former Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller for having established for the first time ever a ministry with responsibility for climate change. This is one of the big challenges of our present period, and we ought not to become confused. We must be definitive about not permitting mining in the cockpit country, for example. We need to act decisively to protect the other areas of watershed and to ensure climate resilience along our coastlines, our waterways, our rivers. This is the most important challenge of now, and we need to mobilize the entire country to deal with it.
Dion Jackson Miller will now direct her next question to Dr. Peter Phillips.
Dr. Phillips, frankly, it's been wonderful seeing two brilliant women leading the government and opposition sides in the Senate. But drill down deeper, and you said there are only 2 of 8 opposition senators that are women. That's 25%. 4 of 13 government senators that are women. That's 30%. Politicians talk a good game on gender equality, but here, when it's completely within their control, they don't deliver. Win or lose, Dr. Phillips, would you commit to nominate a slate of at least 50% women to the Senate?
We have said that we believe that there needs to be at least 50% representation, both in the House of Representatives and in the Senate. But I think we also need to understand that there are many factors that impede women's participation. The support for child care, for example, in the House and Senate, and generally is one such factor. The fact that women carry a greater share of household work is also another factor. So actually getting the right level of representation is going to take more than just a commitment. We're going to have to deal with all of these other factors that really impede women's full participation. We are committed to dealing with those factors in the People's National Party.
Your rebuttal, Mr. Holness.
I think it's a simple thing that you can do, which is to ensure that in your recruitment at least, you have more women. We have done that in the Jamaica Labour Party. We have been deliberate in going out and seeking to recruit women. And now we have more female candidates representing the party than ever before.
Thank you, Mr. Holness. Dion Jackson Miller has a follow-up question for Dr. Phillips.
Yes, Dr. Phillips. Respectfully just asking for a yes or no. We have an entire country of wonderful, capable, professional women. You would only need to find 4 if you're in opposition, or 6 or 7 if you're in government. Would you commit to a slate of at least 50% that you nominate entirely within your control, sir?
I thought I said so. It is a yes.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. George Davis, your question now for Mr. Andrew Holness.
Mr. Holness, given the different ways in which you've dealt with ministers embroiled in scandal, Royal Reed sacked, Dr. Wheatley resigned, Darrell Vaz at OPM, J.C. Hutchinson at OPM, could you tell Jamaica the things a minister has to be involved in to be summarily removed from cabinet?
The discretion to remove a minister from cabinet is entirely in the hands of the Prime Minister. And indeed, that would range from non-performance, dereliction of duties, lack of accountability, lack of responsiveness, and breaking with policy, breaking cabinet, the secrecy of cabinet. There are a host of things as it relates to impropriety, malfeasance, misfeasance, or corruption. Firstly, I have to be satisfied that there is enough, even without an independent authority investigating and pronouncing. I would have to satisfy myself that there is enough. Once I'm satisfied, I will act. Further action sometimes require that I await the pronouncement of independent bodies that are authorized to make definitive statements on corruption. But generally, the public would see and would know that I have acted proportionately and appropriately to address issues of impropriety, issues of lack of accountability, issues of corruption.
Thank you, Mr. Holness. Dr. Phillips, your rebuttal.
For 8 months after the issue of Petrojam came up, the Prime Minister failed to act until Mr. Wheatley removed himself from the cabinet by resignation. There was no action taken against Royal Reed until we in the People's National Party raised the question. The following day, Reed was removed from the cabinet. Now there are a number of ministers who have been found wanting, and they seem to have become part of a holding cell at Jamaica House. It reflects a lack of commitment to the principles of anti-corruption, and it reflects a failure to be bold and decisive in showing leadership to the country.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Marjorie Gordon of Nationwide News Network has been combing through the throngs of messages on social media, and she has another question.
Yes, Durvan. Now, Rupert Francis, he wants to know, how do you plan to reduce Jamaica's demand on importation and focus more on local production?
And that first goes to Dr. Phillips. You know, one of the striking things about the present administration is that despite the previous administration having reduced $300 million off the country's food bill, it has risen again to in excess of 1.1 billion US dollars or thereabouts. We believe that an important part of the reduction of our import bill centers upon agricultural transformation. And we are committed to doing this by ensuring, first of all, that our farmers, especially our small farmers, get better advice from RADA, that they are given titles for the land, which enables them to become mainstream participants in the financial sector, and that they are also assisted with marketing, both in CARICOM and internationally. We think that there is tremendous scope for enhancing our export capability, beginning with agriculture, but including other areas such as our creative sectors, for example, and in the digital economy. Jamaica can do better. We will do better under PNP administration.
Thank you very much, Dr. Phillips. Mr. Holness, your opportunity to respond to the question.
Quickly, when I listened to Dr. Phillips speak, it's as if he just came to the stage. Dr. Phillips has been there for more than 2 decades. And so these problems have existed for a very long time, and they have done nothing. The truth is that the Jamaica Labour Party government, in its first year, created MICAF, the Ministry of Investment, Commerce, Agriculture, and Fisheries. Why? Because we recognize that agriculture requires investment and technology to transform it. What has happened since? We have managed to attract the interest of businessmen into agriculture that are making massive investments. Case in point, Innswood, where over 1,000 acres have been put into production in potatoes and other things, which will be effectively reducing our import bill. We will replicate this 100 times over, but not just for the big investor. These projects also include the small farmers working in conjunction with big capital to deliver significant output. They talk, we get it done.
Thank you, Mr. Holness. Please stay where you are. The national leadership debate returns in just a moment.
The general election debates are presented by the Jamaica Debates Commission in association with
Anil, have you got a background thing playing?
Yeah, here's some background
Institute, Digicel, NCB, and JAM, UWI, JN Group, and Victoria Mutual Group. Watch, listen, decide, vote.
Can you hear it now?
No, it's paused.
Okay, yeah, good. A few points which came up tonight a while ago, and that is one about Peter Phillips' health. That has been something which has been in the many discussions around about his health. What's your take on that brief moment there talking about his health?
My point of view, I think he addressed it. It was mentioned about his health. He said, I'm cancer free, in which we all, pray that he's good. And I think we just have to move on from that because he has pronounced that he's okay and he's doing well. And I'm okay with that, right? Because that's a very personal but I think the Jamaican people need to understand and make sure that he's good. Because I don't believe, if I go back to the history of Jamaica, from Edward Seaga, Norman Manley, I don't believe, and you have to fact check me on this, that if we have ever had a prime minister other than Donald Sangster,
yes,
who was, I believe, and I don't know the story about it, that he was poisoned. I don't know if that was true or not, but I believe he's the only prime minister in Jamaica that had died in office. So I'm going to take Dr. Peter Phillips at his word that he's cancer-free and he could run the country in a very effective way, because that's a very personal pronouncement.
Yes.
And he has to convince the Jamaican people that he's free and he's good to do the people's work.
And I tend to agree with you, because I've heard lots of people come on and even send me messages, persons who are not Jamaicans, depending on sometimes who they're listening to, they'll send a message and say, I heard he's not well, I heard he's sick. And I always say, listen, I have no idea, I'm not a doctor, just like people are arguing, like Usain Bolt have COVID, Usain Bolt do not have COVID. Some people are put their hand on their heart and say, listen, man, he has no COVID. I say, listen, I don't know, I'm not the doctor. So you're right about that. We've got to take Dr. Phillips at his word. He says cancer free. If he says cancer free, that's what he says. He's cancer free. And to be honest with you, he looks sharp to me. He looks sharp. That's my perspective. He looking sharp, because at the end of the day, it is the people around you. It's a team. When it comes on to politics, it's a team.
Exactly. What is the team you're going to assemble that is going to advance the people of Jamaica? The thing that I actually appreciate Dr. Phillips talking about is the digital economy. He hasn't expanded on it, but he talked about digital, which when you look at it from a perspective of how you develop Jamaica, tourism is one aspect, which is a large percentage of the revenue that the Jamaican government take in. But I do believe within my heart that Jamaica could be the country that literally create this whole digital economy. And the fact that Dr. Peter Phillips spoke about that, I think that's volume. And I didn't hear the Prime Minister talk about that, because I do believe automation is going to disrupt our economy. It would be interesting in the next segment if we hear about BPOs, right? Because Jamaica is very determined in terms of expanding the BPO. But you and I know, once you get automated, I don't need all these folks in Jamaica or India or whatever taking calls. I could automate that. So the question becomes, if BPO is a huge part of the economy, how are you going to change that in a digital world? And I'm happy to hear Dr. Peter Phillips actually mention the word digital. And it will be interesting to see how the Prime Minister addressed that.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, for those who are watching, we are here in the UK. Well, I'm in the UK. O'Neill is in Virginia in the States. O'Neill is also a Jamaican American technologist focusing on leverage energy technologies, artificial intelligence, cloud to drive social impact. I have a very much interest in underrepresented communities. We speak a lot about American politics, but I call him this morning and say, listen, let's go online and just watch this thing together and give our perspective, as we are very passionate Jamaicans at the same time outside of Jamaica with a very keen interest. One of the things, O'Neill, oh, by the way, it's 3:45 a.m. in the UK. O'Neill, what time is it? 11? What time is it in?
No, it's 10:44 p.m. in Virginia right now.
Yeah, you guys are cool at that, man. I had to get up. I had to have 2 persons calling me to wake me up, and I have to be keeping my voice down low so I don't wake up the family.
Yeah, my grandmother used to get up at 3 a.m. in the morning, so it's like you're good.
Yeah. But what are the other what are the other points that you figure that was? I mean, they talk about the cockpit country, because that's all the little climate change. That's been a sticking thing for a while. It seemed like it went quiet, the whole cockpit country fiasco of recent days.
Dr. Phillips talked about climate change, which is, and I use the word, climate volatility versus climate change. And I do think Jamaica, because of the size we're in, the cockpit country, you and I know the history of the cockpit country. The Maroons in St. Elizabeth still have a part of that cockpit country. There are different studies that says it's a huge mineral resource for the Jamaican people. But I think we have to balance that, because if I remember and understand, a huge part of our watershed and our water system comes
that many
from
of these issues
so we have to be
were
very
not
mindful.
clarified in law.
Welcome
And
back.
these
Right.
cases have clarified
So climate change, I think,
and I respect our
I think
courts
we're back in.
follow our
Okay.
rules
Joining us.
with great respect and consistency.
Thank you, Mr. Holness. Your rebuttal, Dr. Phillips.
The sad truth is that in all of this, particularly in the NIDS matter and in the matter of the appointment of the Chief Justice, it could have been avoided. We pleaded in the Parliament at every stage with the government and the Prime Minister to say simply, why don't you put this to a joint select committee so reaching and controversial legislation. It is reflective of a pattern of arrogance in the conduct of the government that they refused at every point to just heed common sense and goodwill.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. George Davis, your question for Dr. Phillips.
Dr. Phillips, on each occasion the Holness administration announced a state of emergency in a location, they stated explicitly they were doing so on the advice of the police and the military. Since you have said repeatedly, SOEs are not the answer, will you reject any recommendation to declare an SOE in any area if you form the next government?
We can never say we will never have an SOE anywhere, but I think it needs to be made very plain that the security forces are subject to civilian direction, and therefore it is going to be the judgment of the administration as circumstances would require this. It cannot be any other way.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Your rebuttal, Mr. Holness.
You know, the discussion regarding rights must always also focus on the rights of the many families that have lost loved ones to criminals. It must focus on the rights of people who are locked in their communities, cowering in fear because of criminals. The state must act, and it must act decisively, protecting the rights of all its citizens. This government has done so. We have made massive investments in security, where our security architecture was disinvested for many years. And we have asked our police and military to do a job for which they were ill-equipped and ill-resourced. We have now found a very good strategic approach.
Thank you, Mr. Holness. George Davis has a follow-up question for Dr. Peter Phillips.
Yes, Dr. Phillips, based on what you said in your answer, the leadership of the JCF and JDF and the recommendations of SOEs to the government, and since SOEs are not your preferred prescription, will you then seek to replace those leaders upon taking office and have people more aligned with how you'd want certain recommendations made?
No, the question of replacing individuals is not that of any particular government. The Police Service Commission has the responsibility for the appointment of a police commissioner. The Defense Board has responsibilities in respect of a Chief of Defense Staff. These positions are not to be politicized and acted upon whimsically. But I think we have to make it absolutely clear that they are subject to political direction, civilian direction.
Thank you. We now have another social media question. Marjorie Gordon of Nationwide News Network. Marjorie?
Joel on Instagram wants to know, Durvan, what two major digital reforms do you hope to accomplish if you become Prime Minister?
Mr. Holness, you get the first opportunity to respond to the question.
I'm glad that question was asked. The leader of the opposition mentioned the government's eagerness to get the NIDS bill passed. And I've seen where the opposition has used its role and function in Parliament to prevent important pieces of legislation from coming to fruition. The NIDS is the foundation of us building a digital society. They stopped it. Another critical part of the development of a digital society is to ensure that our young people are properly trained to articulate and participate in the work opportunities that will come from the fourth industrial revolution. We plan to develop and build 6 STEM schools which will focus not just on science and engineering and mathematics, but on coding, which is now a new language. It has always been, but we have not embraced coding as a language. We will build a tech city in Portmore where there is tremendous skills, and we will from that move that tech city into parishes of St. James and into St. Mary and into St. Elizabeth. We will get the young people of this country in tune with the fourth industrial revolution so that we will not just be mere consumers of technology, but creators of technology.
Thank you.
That's what you're saying, O'Neill, isn't it? That's what you're talking about.
And now, Dr. Phillips, your opportunity to respond.
Let me point out once again that the People's National Party did nothing to stop NIDS. It was the courts of Jamaica. The Prime Minister's approach to this matter reflects an arrogance and disregard of the role of the courts, which is quite frankly unbecoming of anyone. Now let me say this. Simply put, there are many things that we should do. We should be digitizing all our school records. We should be digitizing all our hospital records in the country. We should be digitizing all our public records, our titles office and all of these other things. That can be done, and it can be done quickly, and it is something we are committed to. It will enhance the efficiency of the overall administration of the country.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. And Dion Jackson Miller also has a question for you.
Dr. Phillips, Port Antonio, February 19, 2016, you were then finance minister and you called the GLP's 1.5 tax plan a, quote, desperate attempt of people who want power, end quote. Now, you're the one in opposition with a manifesto full of promises. Given that many people left the finance debate still confused about this, can you explain for us in very specific language how the PNP would fund its giveaways in a post-COVID economy?
I think it is very clear, and we make no apology for the fact that in the face of the COVID pandemic and the economic impact it is having, a devastating impact on the lives of so many families, so many people in the informal economy, it is absolutely important that the government of the country throws a lifeline to these people. And so we have no apology at all about, in fact, putting a people agenda at the center. It is also the case, as has been recognized by the entire Parliament, that in the face of the economic fallout from the pandemic, we are going to have to loosen some of the fiscal rules. It is the loosening of the fiscal rules and the introduction of some degree of deficit financing that will enable a lot of this to be done, as well as the reprioritizing of some expenditure. When we give support to big business operations, everybody thinks it is reasonable. We think that the ordinary Jamaican people need to get support to survive COVID-19.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Your rebuttal, Mr. Holness.
You know, Durvan, Master Tom called me before I came to debate, and he said he was reading Peter Papatax Phillips' manifesto. And in that manifesto, he was caught by the promise of $48,000 per year per household. And he said, let me check that. And that worked out to about 200 billion Jamaican dollars. Master Arm said to me, tell Papatax Phillips that me may poor, but me no fool.
That's not $200 million.
Thank you, Mr. Holness.
Not true.
George Davis of Sportsmax Scene TV has another question for Mr. Holness.
Mr. Holness, in your 2016 manifesto, you sketched a 10-point plan for effective crime management and security to, in your words, make Jamaica a safer, more peaceful, and more prosperous society. Despite listing 47 points of achievements in this manifesto, there is nothing, no mention of anything that has been achieved to make citizens feel safer. Is this tacit acknowledgement of your party's failure in this regard?
Of course not. Thank you for the opportunity to bring up all our successes. You know, there's been no other government that has repaired and built new police stations like this government. There's no other government that has provided mobility, and more than that, equipped our fleet with tracking. There has been no other government that has equipped the JDF with the capabilities to manage our domain, not just our land domain, but our exclusive economic zone at sea, which is very important for creating the blue economy. There has never been a government that has increased the manpower, the size and capability of both security forces to be able to increase presence in your community. You just need to ask the people of Mount Salem, the people of Greenwich Farm, the people in Augustown, how that expenditure of security and increased presence, which the opposition every time in Parliament calls for, we have done it and we have delivered. We know that crime is not a flip of the switch, but we have made the investments necessary to see to the long-term and sustainable reduction in crime and make Jamaica a peaceful society.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holness. Your rebuttal, Dr. Phillips.
I think we need to recognize quite fundamentally that the murder rate is higher over the 4.5 years of the current JLP administration than it has been in the previous 4.5 years of the People's National Party administration. The strategy that they have been pursuing has not worked. And beyond that, they failed to try to grapple with the need to build a national consensus around this matter. We begin with mobilizing the people to accomplish great things, and crime control is one.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Marjorie Gordon has been sifting through the teeming and rising numbers of responses on social media. What question do you have for us right now, Marjorie Gordon?
Well, Damarni on Facebook, he wants to know, what are your plans to reduce brain drain or retain skilled and qualified Jamaicans in the country?
Dr. Phillips, you get the first opportunity to respond.
I think, you know, the critical issue is where we started, control crime. One of the things that makes our young people and others want to leave is this overwhelming sense of insecurity that they have. The other issue is to be able to provide access to the basic necessities of life, like housing, like better jobs, higher paying jobs, which is why we are fundamentally committed to building a new economic structure that moves beyond the traditional structures. Agricultural transformation is one area that we have pointed to. The rise of the creative economy, music, fashion, design, drama, leisure industries are another important element in this. Digitizing our country and reducing the digital division that will enable a much more productive economy overall is yet a third area in which we want to be very active in this regard. All told, we will prevent the brain drain when people have an opportunity to fulfill their hopes, dreams, and aspirations right here in the country of their birth.
It's now your opportunity to respond to the same question. Mr.
Well,
Holmes.
let's talk about how we get that done. Our manifesto made a solemn and firm commitment that we will reserve 10,000 houses for young people under the age of 35 at 0% interest rates and full mortgage to achieve. This is a very serious commitment to the youth of Jamaica. Housing is a very important investment that people should make at the start of their lives. I also want to say that our young people are looking for jobs of the future. We're qualifying many Jamaicans for the traditional jobs, but we must also seek to provide the new jobs in artificial intelligence, in animation, in knowledge services. And we will do that with the creation of our tech park. We have seen signs of growth in the BPO industry. The BPO industry is still operating at pretty much a primary level, but we intend to partner with all the stakeholders to increase the value of the services that they're doing so that there are diversified opportunities there for our young people, not to have to run overseas, but to come here, stay here, and work.
Thank you, Mr. Holness. It's time to take another break in this national leadership debate. Please stay with us.
The general election debates are presented by the Jamaica Debates.
Okay, Anil, how was that round?
It was an interesting round that went between security, education. The thing that caught me is two things. And you and I probably have discussed this. You know, coding is good, but coding is going to become commoditized in a couple of years. What I haven't heard either party talked about is automation. I heard the term digitization, but what does that really mean, right? We hear Dr. Phyllis talked about agriculture. We hear talk about different economy. But what I haven't heard is the specific ways of how you're going to leverage a digital economy. Coding, as I said, is good, but everybody's moving to artificial intelligence. Yeah. I haven't heard a word talk about artificial intelligence. I haven't heard a word that talk about research and development. I heard about housing, which is good. Security, I heard about security, and it seems both parties are talking about it, but I haven't heard the specific, what are you gonna do different, right? You have the SEOs, which seems to be effective, but Jamaica is, and you gotta check me on this facts, the one is that I think we're at 2.9 million people in Jamaica.
Well, it's going to 3, if anything, sometimes 2.5 normally we say, you know, and it's between that amount there. Yeah, I mean, you know, anyone can fact check us, but we're not too far off anyhow still.
Right.
Normally 3 million is outside, yeah.
And we have what, 14 parishes. So the question is, how do you do policing differently? And I haven't heard that. You know, I hear, you know, we're going to do this, but no, not one of the candidates have talked about, other than the SEOs, how are you going to make sure that citizens are safe in their communities? And the thing that I always go back to, and I don't know if this, I remember what we call the constables. So I grew up in Sangonetti, in Clarendon. And there were constables. There were I think they call them the special constables.
Yeah.
Right.
And like halfway between police and civilian, isn't like
exactly. But those are the folks that would adhere to the things that are going on in the community and who you could call. So I remember 3 houses down from me, there was a constable. And you could go within the little community that I lived, there was about 10 constables. Right? And everybody knew who they were. Right? So the question becomes, if you imagine, and this is where most Jamaicans who I've spoken with, and I think you and I have discussed this, the current situation that we have in Jamaica doesn't provide the level of security for the Jamaican people. I'll give you an example. I literally, I think it was in January of this year, I grilled the entire house of my mom in Jamaica. She's a lady that I call her my mom, but she's a lady that I grilled the entire house because someone broke into our house. She lived by herself. So I literally put every door has a grill, right? Because I know the police station is in one area. There's a 3-mile radius. And by the time she will call the cops, it's too late. So
there's another point also, which Peter Phillips, which they asked a question about NIDS, about the national identification. And the JLP believe that it's one of the key factors for fighting crimes. And while they were talking, whereby I think Andrew Holness blamed the PNP for stopping it, and Peter Phillips didn't agree with that. But I just flagged up an article which I saw where PNP Robinsons attribute NDS victory to strength of the Constitution, because there was a court hearing at some point where I think it had to do with some constitutional breach. As it says there, the People's National Party General Secretary Julian Robinson is attributing the success of his national identification and data system challenge to the strength of the Jamaican Constitution and the protection it provides citizens. So I believe the Labour Party has somewhat been blaming the PNP for blocking it in a way, and as what you said earlier, with the different aspect with the artificial intelligence, and say they're going to do all of this. What you're talking about is the detail, isn't it?
Yes.
Details sometimes not there. But can we get all those details at this time? I mean, in a way, I mean, does the manifesto? Have you seen the manifesto, by the way?
Yeah. I looked at the manifesto of both of the parties, and it struck me because it seems to me that Dr. Peter Phillips is hitting on the digital native, right? And I don't know and I haven't looked at it, but if you take the population as a whole, I believe there's probably about more percentage that are under the age of 30 or 25 than over that age. So it means that Jamaica is a very young population.
Yeah. Have a look at what Kathy said regarding crime. The way I see it is stopping murder has to be approached from a solving and consequence position. What do you take on that there? What she said there?
So I think that's an interesting point by Kathy. The question when you look at, and I haven't done the sort of the analysis. If you do an analysis of the crime in Jamaica, a lot of the crime in Jamaica has to do with, illicit gain, drugs. It is the 411 or what we call an lottery scam. Those are huge drivers of crime within various communities. So the question becomes, how do I nip that in the bud, right? How do I ensure that there's a little boy that grew up in a community in Sangonetti like myself, poor, hungry at times, but has the aspiration that I could become the owner of one of the largest companies in the world, right? If you don't have that, what you can have is...
We're going to go back over now. Let me see if this is what is happening. Let me see. Here we go.
is this in our country
tuning in.
is eliminated.
We still
What
have-
we've managed to achieve in structuring the government this way is to give all the key agencies that can drive economic growth, job creation, and development.
Sometimes when I come in back,
place
it's
them
like I'm at a
under
different
one
link.
policy guidance. It has worked. This is why we were able to complete so many roads all at once when the previous administration could not complete them. We completed and we started new projects. That is why we were able to bring cruise ships into Port Royal when previous administrations for decades tried. This is why we were able to complete very quickly and make a decision on the results in the results. The results are unassailable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holness. Dr. Peter Phillips, your rebuttal.
I think it is important for us to emphasize that team is the critical part of how we approach things. A team which not only has a mixture of ages and accomplishment, youth and maturity, but also with a proper gender mix. And as I said earlier, we need to ensure that we make it easier for women to participate in the political process. But it is also important that we recognize that Mr. Holness says that he has delivered, but the 5 in 4 has not come about. Crime has increased, and in fact, the digital divide has weakened.
Dr. Phillips.
They have
Thank
not
you.
accomplished this.
George Davis will now pose a question to you again, Dr. Peter Phillips.
Dr. Phillips, in its 2011 manifesto, the PNP said, quote, "The police force is the most important agency in the country's campaign against crime." In that document, the party proposed a comprehensive modernization of the force through a statutory body, the Police Management Authority. That body was not created in the PNP's last term in office. Nothing was said about modernizing the police force in the 2016 manifesto, and nothing in this manifesto. Is it, sir, that the police force is fine as is?
No, I think it is made clear in what we have signed up to in the recent consensus document and what we have committed to in our present manifesto, that we need to complete police reforms. In fact, a national review of the force was undertaken, and it needs to be done. We need to strengthen the investigative capacities of the force. We need to strengthen the numbers in the force. We need to enhance its mobility, and at the same time, we need to ensure that all the other supportive elements that will make the force more effective need to be put in place, including social intervention programs.
Thank you very much, Dr. Phillips. Your rebuttal, Mr. Holness.
You know, there's a time and place for studies. I have put forward many commissions to understand problems and get solutions. But there is also a time for implementation. And what can be said about this government, which has always been said, oh, we need to bring in vehicles and we need to track them. This government has done that. Oh, we need to improve the policy as to how policemen are promoted. This government has done that. Oh, we need to bring in intelligence. We must have intelligence-driven crime fighting. This government has made the investment to do it. This government is reforming the police force before your very eyes. The leader of the opposition talks a good talk, but it is as if they have just discovered what the problems and solutions are.
Mr. Holness. Well, it's now time for the debaters to ask each other a question within 30 seconds, to which they're each obliged to give an answer within 90 seconds. The answer given in this case can be rebutted, but in no longer than 45 seconds. And so, your question to Mr. Holness, Dr. Phillips.
Mr. Holness has said that he has produced 20,000 houses, but the PIOJ's numbers say that in 2019 there were 8,000 housing starts, and the number of housing completions was less than 2,000. How do you explain the discrepancy between the PIOJ's numbers and your own?
Well, first of all, the NHT has provided us with very accurate data, and I speak on the NHT's data. And the NHT's data tells us that we have had, over our 4.5 years, close to 20,000 housing starts. You ask about housing starts? Yes, the houses will be completed, and they are being completed at a rapid rate. People are already buying them. As it relates to the 22,000 housing solutions that we have provided in our 4.5 years, that would include what has been provided by the HAJ, the Housing Agency of Jamaica, an incredible agency which is doing very well in providing housing solution for average income persons and low income persons. So we have done very well in the provision of housing solutions, far better than the previous administration.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Dr. Housing solutions are less than 8,000 over the period of the administration. The numbers that you are citing do not compute. It would seem again it is another PR gesture which doesn't face up to the fact that the number of solutions have not been provided for people to be able to live in these houses.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Now, Mr. Holness, your opportunity to ask Dr. Phillips a question.
Dr. Phillips, you have claimed to be a great advocate for fiscal discipline. You have pointed to the sacrifice that the Jamaican people have made to pass IMF tests and achieve fiscal stability. How could you approve, how could you create, how could you disseminate a manifesto that, were it to be implemented, it would unravel and destroy the very thing that you claimed you sacrificed for, this fiscal responsibility and fiscal discipline? Is it that you are so power hungry, so desperate, that you could not resist trying to trick the people of Jamaica?
I think you've got your facts all wrong. The fact of the matter is that the program of the People's Agenda will involve about 1/3 of the discretionary expenditure that is available to any government. It means that we will be spending in the order of about $50 billion. That will be the priority focus in this area. We make no apology for providing relief for the population that is being negatively affected by COVID-19. It will not destroy the fiscal foundations of the country, and it is absolutely incorrect for you to suggest that premise.
Mr. Holness.
Dr. Phillips, in Parliament, when the Minister of Finance came to announce that because of the maintenance of good fiscal discipline, we were able to put forward a CARE program, very thing you are talking about, and have implemented 440,000 Jamaicans got a CARE grant. You objected to that because you took the view that it would result in a compromise of the fiscal rules. How could you come here now and put forward a manifesto in 2020 that would destroy what we have worked for the last decade? It is unreasonable, and I am personally hurt because you have destroyed your credibility.
Thank you.
There is absolutely nothing that occurred in the Parliament where the PNP or myself repudiated that.
Dr. Phillips, that's it.
Okay.
It's time for us to have the closing statements, and based on the earlier coin toss, Dr. Peter Phillips of the People's National Party will go first.
52 years, 58 years after independence, Jamaica can do better. In fact, if you look at what has occurred over the past 4.5 years, we have not been equal to the task of meeting the challenges of the 21st century. Our crime numbers, our murder numbers in particular, are up. We have failed to achieve 5 in 4. Economic growth stagnates. We have a deepened digital divide. We believe that the opportunity exists now for us to be able to make a marked improvement in the access to services that are available to the Jamaican people, to provide better housing, to provide for a new economy, to provide for a safe and secure environment for all our people to live in. In order to do this, we need to mobilize all the resources and energies of our people. That is the approach of the People's National Party. And so, building this future, building this new Jamaica of your dreams and hopes and aspirations is within our grasp. And therefore, I urge you all, on September 3rd, vote for the People's National Party. Put your X beside the head.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Mr. Holness, your closing statement.
Thank you, Dervan. This election is about giving the people of Jamaica the assurance that we will come through this pandemic safe with our lives and livelihood intact. This election is about leadership. This election is about strength and stamina. This election is about who is best able to unify the country. This election is about a vision for a better and more prosperous future. This election comes down to who has gotten things done and who will be able to get things done. The people of Jamaica, for the first time in a long time, has a government that can campaign on achievements. You have a government that can campaign on performance and a government that offers a credible, a very credible manifesto. On election day, September 3rd, I urge you to consider your options carefully. Careful consideration will reveal that the credible and right choice is the Jamaica Labour Party. I thank you, and I look forward to your support. God bless Jamaica.
Thank you, Mr. Holness. And that concludes the debate between the President of the People's National Party, Dr. Peter Phillips, and the leader of the Jamaica Labour Party, Mr. Andrew Holness. Given the increase in the number of cases of COVID-19, the Jamaica Debates Commission invites each party leader to send a message to their supporters and to Jamaica about the importance of observing the COVID-19 protocols. We invite Dr. Peter Phillips of the PNP to go first in 45 seconds.
I want to urge all Jamaicans and the supporters and members of the People's National Party to consider their safety. Wear your mask, sanitize, maintain social distance, be safe so that you can protect yourself and your families and come out on election day. Jamaica needs all its people to be able to build on this future which we all seek when these elections are over. Remember, stay safe and protect yourself. Maintain social distancing and sanitize.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. We invite Andrew Holness of the JLP to go ahead and deliver his message.
We encourage all Jamaicans to come out and vote. But first, we encourage you to be conscientious that we are in a pandemic. So when you come to the polling station, develop the situational awareness that you need to social distance. Now is the time, more than ever, when we need to stand in line 6 feet apart. Develop the awareness as well that there will be persons coming into the line, elderly persons, persons who may be ill, that should be given priority to vote. Allow them to vote. When you come to the polling station, please wear your mask. Travel with hand sanitizer.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Holness. We now invite both party leaders to elbow bump in the spirit of friendship after having donned their masks. All a part of the new normal. And that's it, the final debate in the 2020 general election debate series that focused on leadership and featured Dr. Peter Phillips of the PNP and Andrew Holness of the JLP. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to our production crew, production and funding partners, and most of all, our viewers and listeners across Jamaica and the diaspora. On behalf of the Jamaica Debates Commission, we're asking you to observe all health and safety guidelines from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, not just on election day, but every day. We can beat COVID-19, but it starts with and depends on you. I'm Dervan Malcolm. Good evening.
Friendship after having donned their masks.
Hey, Anil, that was the wrap, yes?
Yeah, I'm putting my mask on.
Oh, you put your mask?
Yeah, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Oh, we're not hearing each other
me?
now. For some strange reason.
Are you hearing me?
I can't hear you. You can't hear me?
No, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
No sounds, nothing? Just 1 second. Let me see what's going on there.
Are you hearing me?
1, 2.
You hearing me? I'm hearing you.
I have no sound. You have no sound.
No, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Let's see. Let's see what's happening here. Microphone check.
I think you mute me.
There's somehow. Can you hear me? Yeah, you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Let me see what's. I have no idea what's going on there. Let me see.
No, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Oh.
Yeah, I
think they can hear us.
So like, Kathy can hear us.
People can hear us, but oh, Anil, I can't hear you. That's it. No, can you hear me, Anil?
Yeah, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
1 second. Kathy, can you hear us?
Yeah, Kathy can hear both of us. I think you mute me.
1, 2. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I'm hearing. Let me do something. Are you hearing me?
Let me go onto the page here to see if I can hear anything.
I'm hearing you.
1, 2. 1, 2.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. I'm not sure what's going on. Are you hearing me?
Let me see something. This is strange here. Let me see something. One second. Hey, Anil, what's up?
I'm hearing you.
You're hearing me?
Yeah.
So you're hearing me loud and clear. But somehow I can't hear you, which seems to be the issue. But let me hear what.
He's saying that she could. There's a couple of people that said they could hear both of us. So you can't hear me.
Okay, so Arthur can hear us. All right.
But you can't hear me.
Okay, so let me get it right now. Arthur can hear you. Kathy can hear you. You can hear me.
Yeah. Well,
but I can't hear you. So therefore, what I'll do is this. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm hearing you.
Okay. Let's see if we can do something this way. Okay. If you go back on. Okay,
Yeah,
I can hear you. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's do it this way. No. Put the phone down. Put the phone down. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it down. Let's see if I get
No. Keep the phone on. Keep the phone on. Keep the phone on. Yeah.
No.
Okay, guy. This is weird. Listen, is this artificial intelligence or whatever like that? Because if everybody, yes.
Yeah. Okay. You hear me?
Okay. Yeah.
Clear.
Well, let's go. What's your take then on the election, on the debate? Or that's the first question everybody will ask is who won?
Hold on one second. Let me put my
Arthur, if you can hear me, who do you think won? Kathy, who do you think won? Yeah.
The way I look at it, there's a couple of topics. I don't believe there was sort of a winner or a loser. I think at the end of it, I believe the prime minister made a great case of why you should reelect him. But topically, there's a couple of things that I written down. Crime was a big part of it. They talk about the SEOs. They talk about police reform. And the opposition talk about, what the current administration is not doing. There was a counter around the resourcing that was provided to the Jamaica Defense Force and also the police. There's the whole thing around digital economy. I thought that it seems to me it was a theme that was hit on by the opposition party around the digital economy. Climate change came up a bit, and then policing. So thematically, those are some of the things that I think were front and center. I don't think either party sort of, go into details, and in debates like this, you don't expect the details, but I thought the prime minister held his own, and I thought the opposition leader put a few jabs in about the things that they're not doing, especially when it came to corruption. When it comes to, I think that the thing he mentioned was around holding member of parliament accountable, right? So I think it was a good dialogue between both. Do I feel it moved the needle for Jamaican voters? My gut feeling is saying no.
There's Kwame. Both were strong on various topics. No clear winner.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with.
Sound is back.
Sound is back. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would agree with Kwame that I think each in a debate each talked about their point, but to Kathy's thought around, I don't think the opposition party clearly talk out and articulate how are they going to carry out their plan. What is the things that they're going to do different than the current administration? I thought Andrew was effective when he talked about housing, the things that they have done. And you could argue with the numbers, and I don't know, someone would have to fact check me on that 22,000 number. I thought he articulated how they got to that 22,000 number.
Yes.
I thought there was some clear stuff around crime, what he would do different as an administration going forward. I thought there was some very tactical things from the current administration. The opposition, I don't believe, clearly articulated what would I do different.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing that I didn't hear.
what Kwame said right there is something that I said many times. Voters already decided who they're voting for. The other day, after the last debate between Nigel Clark, the Minister of Finance, and also the Mr. Mark Golding, who is opposition's Minister of Finance, when you listen to both of them, I don't know if you watched it, like they're coming from different angles in a way. Nigel very upbeat, he's an intellectual and with the figures and everything. The only failing I gave to Nigel was trying to be a politician, and I don't think he's really a politician in a way, but he was making those sort of political gesturing. Mark Golding, I saw him. He was a guy seemed like him having his soundness because, of course, being involved with Peter Bunting and Golding, that very lucrative firm, and he's a financier. But sometimes I don't think these guys buys into socialist policies. He's a capitalist, but he has to play with it. That is why when they ask him, did he write off or did he sign off the manifesto for the PNP? There was no clear, definitive answer there. And in comparison with tonight, I see the similar thing where Andrew is upbeat, full of passion, excited, bang, 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 and Peter Phillips sort of a bit a sound guy. No matter what, nobody can question his capability, but I don't know if that sort of zeal and that what he has came out a bit sort of laid back to a certain way, and I don't know if people buy into that, and that is why I can never give these guys who win or not, because it seems like who is a PNP will always say the PNP win, and who is a JLP will always say the JLP win.
No, you're right. You're totally right. But I think Kwame just made a point about a question about women representation.
Yeah.
And I do believe Peter Phillips bundled that. And I think Andrew and the current administration has made that a focal point that, hey, look how many women we have in leadership position within the party. Does this change the makeup? You and I know that politics in Jamaica is local. People are looking about who's the member of parliament, right? So I believe if you go sort of parish by parish, most people already made up their mind, that guess what? They know who they're voting for. But I do believe Dr. Peter Phillips missed an opportunity to talk about equity and equality and representation among women. He didn't really address it. I think he just tacitly go, oh yeah, we're going to do it at some point in time.
And shut it down. And he shut it down right there. That's
exactly. Vice the current administration is like, look, that's a center part of our platform. And I thought that was a missed opportunity for Dr. Peter Phillips in terms of talking about equity and representation among women in politics. Because you and I know, Jamaican women are the backbone of our society, and they need to be part of the political representation. And that has not been a focal point over the last couple of years. But I am sort of glad that it is a platform that the current administration has made to highlight women. And I was hoping that the opposition would say, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Women representation is something that we're going to do.
The point also what Kathy is just flagged up is that irrespective of male or female, just want the best representative. And that is a similar case like in countries like the UK and the USA, when they talk about diversity, they want more affirmative action, positive discrimination, making sure there's a black person there. But just getting a black person there, one from the BME or the ethnic minority community, doesn't mean to say that they'll do well in that position. And I think that is what, because one would say for the PNP, okay, who have you got? You got Lisa Hanna, who is always on the front line. You've got Imani Duncan, who I think she's got a safe seat there. I think for you have bright sparks which are there at the same time. So Peter Phillips could justify himself in a way, but as you say, what is lacking is maybe details. There's an expectation that people know already.
Right.
Sorry, go on. Yeah.
No. I think you're right. I thought that Dr. Phillips could have highlighted the fact that, you know what, we're not there yet. Here's my commitment. I think the answer for him would say, hey, we're not there, but I am committed to representation and the best representation. Because at the end of the day, right, when I look across Jamaica, in the experience I've had, it's not that women can't be great representative, they just weren't given the opportunities. So we have to develop that cadre of women to be able to be local representation within the communities and then aspire to be member of parliaments or get appointed to the Senate.
Yeah. I see a little banter there, what Kwame just said a while ago. Agree, Kathy, but still for donkey, the men mess up the thing, let women lead. Well, that is the thing they're talking about with COVID, like New Zealand, whereby there's a countries where women are on the leadership front line, like Merkel, New Zealand with COVID, they do well. I don't know if there's much evidence to say that just because you got a woman, it does work. But I won't get into that one day and get into any black hole situation. And Cathy is actually saying he came across one like we need the women more in the home. Who is that?
My position is this. I have a grandmother who they didn't want her to be a teacher. She created her own school. I grew up around some of the strongest women in my lifetime. In my life is shaped by my grandmothers, my aunts. One of my aunts was the first telecom engineer in Jamaica, and everybody told her that she couldn't do it. So I grew up very, very strong women in my life. And for me, it's not a dialogue around women in the house or whatever. No, it's my dialogue. There should be equality. Just like how the women should do XYZ, I should do XYZ.
Yeah.
And I grew up as a person who, guess what? My grandmother taught me how to cook. My grandmother taught me how to wash the toilet. I had 4 sisters. There was never a thing where, oh, your sister's just doing this. No, I had to wash the toilet. I had to clean. I had to learn how to cook. So that is the position I've taken as an adult, is that women should be by my side, 50-50.
Yes.
So this whole notion that women should be in the kitchen, I think it's a backward notion.
Yeah. Well, Kathy, what he's saying is that he should have used the opportunity to come across like he really wants more women. Use this question to impress women, even so, as well. I want to just go on to this bit about the stopping people from leaving. Do you think that was dealt with properly when that question came up? How do we stop young people from leaving Jamaica? I think both of them tried to answer it.
I don't think the questions was answered properly, and I use myself. I went to high school in Jamaica. I spent a year after before I came to this country for college, and I never went back to Jamaica. And it's because of opportunities. And I do believe if we look at Jamaica and we get what I call political class in Jamaica and sort of what we call the families in Jamaica, to realize that how do we ensure that we're providing opportunities in Kintyre, in Matches Lane, in you name it, Jamaica will be a different place. We can't have up-down, downtown, where if you have a resume, doesn't matter if you went to UWE, if your resume say you're from Matches Lane, you're not going to really get a job. Doesn't matter if you have a degree, because there's a distrust. So how do we ensure across the country there's opportunities for everybody? And the reason that people leave is because they feel there's no opportunities for them. I have friends in Jamaica right now who have graduated, you name the universities, and they still can't find jobs in the field that they've gotten education. But you know where they're finding jobs? In the BPO.
Yes.
Good friend of mine has a computer science degree. Guess what? He's a call center operator in a BPO agency. Not because he wants that job, because that's how he's going to survive and take care of his family.
Yes, yes. No, that is something really profound, because at the end of the day, whatever one's postcode in Jamaica, which can be a discriminating factor for them getting a job, when they come overseas, what becomes a discriminating factor is their name. Anything, but it's not going to be where you live at the same time, and there's a level sort of playing field which they can deal with. I must say though, even this particular election, the pay is lower than the payment for the student loans. Cathy said. I must say, I don't know if you've actually. I looked at the manifestos, and I wasn't so impressed by the way how to navigate the PNP manifesto, the way how to navigate the PNP. I say that strategically because I think a manifesto should be very easy to navigate. Really, you had to go in there. You got to give your name. People, of course, will give fictitious name. You got to give what area you're interested in. There are like 20 areas. You can only get, I think, up to 8 areas at a time. It looked like it was more tracking and tracing. Like when I go into a restaurant into the UK now, for argument's sake, I went into Subway the other day, and before you could sit down, you got to put in on your mobile phone to link into the head office for them to actually track you and trace you in case someone comes in later and have COVID. Now, that manifesto would have been good maybe 4 or 5 months ago in anything to capture data, capture information. But right before an election, people are always haphazard about giving their details to get information and I didn't actually get to go through it, personally speaking. And as for the JLP one, I'll be honest with you, I didn't even get time to go through it in a way, properly speaking, because of the time factor, and then because at the same time, in my disgruntled letter which I put out there in the cyberspace, that none of the political leaders even wanted to come and have a conversation with the diaspora in a way to say that they're interested. Not even one mention was mentioned of the diaspora by the leaders. Not one mention. Nigel Clark mentioned it, and they had to get a question in. So in a way, I just want the best for Jamaica.
So here's the thought I have. 2 things. You're right, because I wrote it down. No mention of the diaspora and engaging the diaspora. But when you look at the manifesto, let's be clear. What percentage of Jamaican voters are going to look at the manifesto?
Yeah.
You have to check me on this. I would opine that 90% of the Jamaican population, they're not going to look at the manifesto.
Yeah.
So if I look at the community in Sanguinetti and Spaldings, where I'm from, how many of those folks even have the capacity for internet or whatever? They're not going to look at it. So that, in my mind, the manifesto is for a small portion of the population who wants to look at it. Because when I look at the voters who are going to the polling stations, I would opine, and again, I could be wrong, 90% of them has never read the manifesto. Because you and I know in Jamaica, this is what I've heard.
Yes.
My dad is PNP, my mom is PNP, I'm going to vote PNP. My mom is JLP, my dad is JLP, I'm going to vote JLP. Right?
End of.
Right? So the manifesto, it's there, but the question would be, what percentage of Jamaicans even read it?
And that's the thing. That's why Kwame said that's it, because what's going to win the election is who put out the best dub plate for the young people at this rate of how it is now. Because we're talking about 3 days ago, and the debate has been done. I personally think the debates, in a way, didn't make much of a difference. That's just my view from this side. It didn't swing. If I was looking for something, I didn't get it. Its status quo remained the same That's just from my perspective. I mean to say, if I'm leaning towards PNP or leaning towards JLP, there has been no swing in the barometer, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? One has got to now dig, and this is where I say politics should be very effective. And I don't know if it works for Jamaica. Does it work for the UK? Because we're in this sort of parliamentary system. Do people vote for their member of parliament, the one who they believe is doing the better job, right? The one who is doing good, whether or not you prefer that leader, whether you prefer Peter Phillips or you prefer Andrew Holness. But what about that MP? What about Mary Jane? Has Mary Jane been doing a good job all this time? Has the income, as the one who is a shadow, who is a caretaker, have they been engaging? You know, there's a massive case going on now. When I say case, there's a classic one to watch. It's going to be Mike Henry and a lady named Jess something or whatever, Zulika Jess. And she's having a struggle there because of some opposition towards her, some death threats and all those sort of things. You know, she seemed to be on the ground. Mike Phillips has been, Mike Henry has been there, I think, for 200 years. Sorry, I'm sort of over it. I mean, but he's been there for a long time, you know. And the guys old, and you wonder sometimes these guys shouldn't step back. But anyway, that's just my little take right there in regards to, is it the leader, or one should then, if you're not sure, you narrow it down to the local representation, your local MP. Who is the best person? You know, oh, I went to school with that person. Like in Northeast Centre, I know that since Shaheen died, the person representing is Ernest Smith's daughter. Now, I remember her as a little girl. I used to go to York Castle High School. I know Nesta, the bigger sister, as well. So, you know, you saw people can say, okay, I know her, blah, blah, blah. Do people look at it from that perspective? The local representation. Yeah.
I would say in Jamaica, what they say, politics is local.
Yes.
So does Andrew Holness change the mind of someone in Southeast Clarendon or Northeast, you know, name it? No. Yeah. It's all what the voters are feeling based on their communities, in my opinion. Right? So I don't believe the debate changed anything. I don't believe the manifesto changed anything. And as I mentioned before, I think people have made up their mind, right? People have looked at it and say, okay, is my life a little bit better than before? And I think that's where you're going to see is where the debates, to your point, is not going to change anything. I do believe the debates in the last election changed a lot because the previous administration decided not to debate the opposition, and they made his house a central focal point. And I believe a lot of Jamaicans, they say, you know, Jamaican talk about bad mind, right? They said, look, I'm going to speak in Patois for a little bit. They said the man a build him house. Why him house have issues? Why you have issues with the man house?
The too bad mind. The too bad mind.
Exactly. Too bad mind. I spoke with back then. It was like, oh, they said, well, if you want to debate, you have to tell us how you got the money to pay for a house.
Yeah.
And when he came out and said, okay, here's how I pay for the house, I was like, oh yeah, okay, we're not gonna. So I think the debate mattered back then, and the fact that that did not send a message to the Jamaican people is like, oh well, we don't have to talk with you. I think this debate matters in the sense that most people are not listening to it. I don't think the average voters are listening to the debate. They've already made their decision because they're looking at it from a local perspective. They're looking at it and say, okay, when I look at my MP, what have my MP done for me over the last X number of years?
Yes.
And if they feel that their MP are addressing the issues, they're going to vote back for that MP. If they don't, if they feel that the other MP on the opposition side has made a better case, they're going to switch.
What Kathy said is that what she have observed is that a person may be of one party from birth, but if they don't like their rep, they will just not vote at all.
And that's another thing. Kathy made a great point about participation because, and Kathy could check me on this. I believe the participation in the last election was less than 40%. Less than 40%. So it tells you that there's 60% of the Jamaican people that's like, you know what, it doesn't matter who I vote for. I'm not voting because it doesn't make any change, which is sad because you're giving up your right to make a change.
Well, listen, in the UK, in the last election, Jeremy, I don't remember the socialist guy name. The Labour Party there. A lot of Labour people did not like some of his style and his politics. And two things happened. The Tories came out fighting for this Brexit whole thing because the Brexit factor was something which crossed over between different parties at the same time. But some Labour persons can't find it in their heart to vote Conservative, but they just won't vote Corbyn. And that is what is happening. And that's why I said the only way that PNP can win is if people are fed up with some respect with Andrew, maybe annoyed by him by calling the election, putting their life in jeopardy, smash the whole success factor with the COVID thing, whereby Jamaica is now on the watch list for the UK, whereby UK advisory is saying, don't go to Jamaica. And if you go to Jamaica and come back, you're going to quarantine for 14 days. I was reading some more information and it said 382% increase in COVID in Jamaica. That's the reason why they pushed the needle. Some people are saying it's because Usain Bolt put it on the map to say, hey, I got COVID, and eyes start to look into. I heard somebody say, COVID and the whole vaccine is a plot. It's a plot to get this vaccine thing. But it's very clear though that people voting pattern, and it's very interesting to see this one. That's why I said the only way Andrew can lose is if people from the JLP do not go out and vote, and the PNP, whether they like Peter Phillips or not, whether he's looking tired or not, they're hungry for power, and they'll more turn out.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. I believe Jamaican people, the ones that are going to vote, are going to turn out to vote. Yeah. Are they going to turn out and vote in masses? Probably not.
Yeah.
I do believe what I worry about, because I have family members in Jamaica who are in the 70s and 80s. I think they're scared, and majority of them probably won't go to the poll.
Yeah.
So unless they make the polling easier, where there's social distancing and they care about it, they will go out.
Yes.
Right. But I believe, and we'll see the data, that if you look at the data post voting and you compare it to the last election, my hypothesis is that it's going to be lower. Turnout is going to be lower. And when turnout is lower, a lot of time it benefit the current party.
Yes.
So it's going to be very low. So the question becomes, what does that translate to from electing the member of parliaments?
Yes, yes.
And that is where I think it's going to be very, very interesting.
Well, it will be a very interesting election. One of the things I also find very interesting as well is that this document, I don't know if you know this document, it's called Vision 2030.
It's been around for a while.
Yeah, it's been around for a while, and it's supposed to be this bipartisan document. This document which is supposed to be whereby everybody's lurching towards for it to happen. My last conversation with Matunda, who was on the first Election Watch show, he said, listen, Silburn, that's an outdated document now. They need to shut it down. But nobody spoke into the Vision 2030. There's no common ground with Vision 2030 at these elections. Where does Vision 2030 operate with it? And I find that very strange. And it's just showing how sometimes things are amiss. I made a point in while notes was going on, I didn't want to forget it. It's digitalizing all records. Remember? Digitalizing, that's what Peter Phillips said. Everything to be digitalized. And to this day, you cannot hear a major conversation talking about how do you digitalize voting. like in the whole pandemic time now. Uh, if my sister travels and come to me in the period of a week before the election, not knowing that Andrew is going to vote on the call election, and if she's a passionate person who wants to vote, should she then pick up herself back, fly back to Jamaica, and even so might even miss it because she has to be quarantined, if anything. And this is why I always bring up this whole issue about overseas voting need to be thought about, structured, and I flagged it up in my letter called 2004, 2006. I brought that thing on the platform at the Diaspora Conference. I recall I was in the bathroom, and I remember Danville Walker was the director of election. I remember Delana Franklin was on the microphone saying, calling Silburn, where I was taking a pee, man, literally. And I dashed back downstairs there because Danville Walker came there and I want to talk about this whole issue about overseas voting. That was 2004, Anil. 2006, 2008, 2010. Went to all these different conferences. And every time you go to a next conference, it's like it just starting all over again. That's it, man.
Well, I think so there's a whole concept of absentee balloting, and I don't know, and someone could check my fact. Yeah. I don't know if you could do absentee balloting in Jamaica.
No, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Right. So to me, to your point, there has to be some mechanism in place because Jamaica. Let's be clear. Jamaica has voter ID. They've had it for. You can't go to the polling in Jamaica without your ID, right? Okay. Yeah. So if I am a Jamaican and I travel, I should be able to do absentee balloting, right? Or figure out a way in this new world to vote in a very secure way.
Yeah.
Right. And I think those are things that needs to be addressed, to your point. And I do believe that the current administration, they're thinking that, you know what, and I don't know whether this is true or not, Stillborn, is that they're saying, you know what, majority of the Jamaicans who need to vote are here anyway.
Yeah.
Right? They're here.
Don't listen to Silburn or O'Neill. They can't vote, man.
Yeah, it is. Exactly. It's like, but I do believe there's something to be thought about. How do you get Jamaicans to vote in this whole digital economy that Peter Phillips mentioned? And I think if I count the numerous time he said digital, it's probably over 5 or 6 times.
Mm.
But what I would have loved him to sort of zoom out on is what does that mean for him?
Mm.
Right? And I don't think he articulated it. I think it seems to me it was a buzzword. But, I think we're going to see come election time, we'll see which party actually, will actually win the poll.
Yeah.
We'll see. But to your point, Jamaicans have to ask themselves, am I better off today than I was X number of years ago? Right? And Kathy does put, it depends on the garrison. And she's right.
Yeah.
It goes back to the discussion we had before, and what we were talking about is politics is local. So if I like my MP, I'm gonna vote for that MP regardless, right? So when you look at it and you say, okay, if I look across all 14 parishes, right, who are the MPs that I actually like? Are there MPs that I don't like?
Mm.
And if the answer is yes, you might see a flip because locally, I think an MP is not doing very well.
Yes. Well, you want to keep that government in power.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, for me and Kwame is up. Maybe he just got up already, but Kwame's in the UK. 5 o'clock for us here. You is what, 11 o'clock?
No, 12 is 12 for me.
12 for you.
And I don't know where Kathy is.
I still haven't finished my popcorn.
I don't know if Kathy's in Jamaica or she's in the UK or she's in the US.
Kathy is in Jamaica. Well, I don't know. People travel every day. Kathy, are you still in Jamaica or what? I mean, I don't know. Or she's in lockdown or quarantine or something like that. But I think at the end of the day, the next move is that the spin doctors are going to be out there now picking up on all the different points in regards to the election, especially on the salient ones. So you're going to hear the JLP saying we won. You're going to hear the PNP saying we won. And then you and I are going to look back and say, okay, right, here we go again. Spin. Might as well do just a breakdown and spin on my head or something like that,
Yeah, right. And the thing that actually was for me was sort of disappointed is there was not a question around engaging the diaspora.
Yeah,
there was not a question, to your point before earlier.
Yes.
Is someone should have asked the question, because and someone could fact check me on this. I believe there's more Jamaican living outside of Jamaica than inside.
Yes.
Right. So to your point before, in terms of remittance going back into Jamaica, I do believe, and I think the number that I saw a couple of years ago was over $3 or $4 billion a year in remittance, right? And then when you look at the GDP of Jamaica, that's a huge part of the GDP.
Yes.
Investment from our returning resident, and the fact that nobody asks a question around diaspora engagement and investment was a little bit, I'm like, interesting.
Well, Kathy's actually saying Kathy makes emphasis. She's in Jamaica. I don't know why she said JM. Maybe she think we can't pick up when she said Jamaica, so she placed a great emphasis. JM. 5 times. We get the message. Duh. But let's going back to what Kwame said. Kwame said something very interesting here. That Peter Phillips talked about digitalizing things, but he said these titles should be digital. They have been.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. There's like for example, your birth certificate is digitized. It has been digitized for years. So I'm not sure if either Peter Phillips has a moment that he doesn't realize that, or he think that there's more to be done around digitalization of records. I don't know.
Well. Correct, Kwame. I was wondering why I said that, because Education and Talent Office is digitalized. And then Kwame said, again, for me, it shows an outdated, out of touch party. I can see where Kwame is leading, but of course he hasn't got a vote. Duh. Yeah, but anyway, let's just, since you're here, let's just move away from Jamaica for a brief moment. What's happening over there? What's going on with you guys in the States? Everybody just said, I don't know what Biden is about, but they said just vote Biden because we get our Trump. Just vote Kamala. We don't know what they're actually saying, what their policies are, but just vote them to get our Trump. What sort of politics is that, man?
It's my perspective. I think people are going to try to figure out what is best to move the country forward.
Yeah.
And I think in November, people are going to make the choice whichever party they support based on actually tactical things and actions, right? If you look within our sort of narrative that's going on in the country, we have racial tension. There's the whole talk about systemic racism. I think the question will be, how do we address these systemic racism issues in our country? Right? How do we make sure Black and brown people are getting the educational opportunities that every person in this country that will have? So for me, how do we get police reform? Right? How do we do these things in a way that is meaningful and tactical, that provide benefits to our citizenry? And if we can't, if whoever articulate that, I think we'll have an opportunity. For me, it's always listen to each of the candidates and decide, because I think these votes are very personal, who's going to address those issues. And if you look at both sides, I think there is argument that has been said, okay, this person has been around for 50 years, this person has been around for 4 years, this person there's a certain amount of couth, as they say, about this person, and this person has a personality that we just don't like. So I think the voters is going to have to figure it out.
Yes.
But I think we as a country were at an inflection point in terms of how we address things around equity and equality for Black and brown people. And I do believe we have to address the systemic things. How do we provide funding for schools that is equitable across all of the counties, right, across the country? How do we ensure that we reimagine public safety that may ensure that Black and brown people are safe and there's a trust between the police and people look like me?
Yes.
How do we go back to community policing? How do we provide a resourcing? So I think that's going to be, in my mind, and I could be totally wrong, dialogue between now and November. And I think where you live in the country, you're going to figure it out and you're going to make that decision. And I think our politics has come to the point where if you live in California and New York, you already make up your mind. I think it's the places in Ohio, Wisconsin, Florida, Pennsylvania, those are the communities that are going to make the difference.
Okay. Well, definitely, we'll be following that one up, and you know what we're gonna do is to get a round table also with Kathy. She tend not to like to show herself publicly, but we can get her on and Kwame, and you know we have a round table for the UK, the US elections as well. UK election is not so sexy at this time. There's nothing happening, really. Brexit is over. The last guy who won the leadership for the Lib Dem party, it didn't even flutter anybody's boat. You know what I mean? So that's boring.
Who's the prime minister? Is it Corbyn or is it Johnson? Oh, sorry.
It's Corbyn is the prime minister for the UK. No, it's Boris Johnson. We got to get out. Listen. Let me let you go. Well, actually, let myself go.
Yeah, because it's what 5 a.m. for you right now.
Yeah. What she said she had been on. I said no, Kathy, not being on the
your face, Kathy.
Face cam on the face bit, man. There's a face bit. Okay, maybe she's saying her picture is there, so that's it. All right. Kwame said, "You mean the PM was gone, Miss?" Oh.
He's still in Barbados.
Well, Kwame, as you know that I'm a member of the Conservative Party. You know, if anything happened, I can always stand in. You know. Man straight from Ochi, so we got lots of able persons who are able to stand in for Boris Johnson. Guys, let him have his little break. Actually, he has just appointed a fitness guru, his personal fitness guru, because he said he was too overweight when he got COVID. So you know, let's give him a little break right there. And if anything, I can fill in the meantime.
But he also just had a baby, right?
Yeah, he had a baby. Yeah. So you know. It's a team. It's a teamwork. I always say it's a teamwork. You know?
Yeah. This was fun, Stillborn, as always. And, you know, as I always say, you know, coming from Jamaica and the opportunities that I have gotten, I will say without the sort of upbringing that I've had in Jamaica, I wouldn't be who I am. So I appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate the dialogue.
Yeah.
And we wish nothing but success for Jamaica, because I do believe Jamaica could be the beacon for the Caribbean. And I do believe Jamaica could be the technological hub for the Caribbean and Latin America. We're doing it, our citizenry are doing it outside. Look at you and I. Right, we're Jamaican, and we're blazing trail in the different areas that we are, and I do believe in the exceptionalism of our Jamaican people.
Kwame just said when they let me in, and he's tell Kwame say I'm already in, man. I'm already in. I can show you my card, my membership card as well. You may not be in yet, but I always say to people all the while, you just have to get your foot wet. Get your foot wet, because anything will happen. You see, one of the things, O'Neill, what I strongly believe is that with the advent of Barack Obama, with the advent of so many black leadership, which is coming on now, I always say that even what is happening in America is that persons have to have this semblance of hope against what they see, hope against what people perceive, hope against everything else. And that was one of the key catch with Barack Obama when he said, yes, we can. Because whether people look back and say it didn't make sense, but what it did, it stimulated some level of hope. And hope is like an energy factor. It's like an oiling mechanism. It's like a fuel that propels people to go for their dreams. That is why many people, listen, even Trump, make America great again. It stimulates some people. It may not stimulate some, but it pushes. Unfortunately, we don't see what Biden is actually saying, what is his thing, And that's why I always love this song. When I used to do rapping many years ago, it always said, New York, New York, big city of dream, with Grandmaster Flash. Or the Furious Five. New York, big city of dreams, And what it does is stimulate land, And I always say sometimes that even the UK, and I was having an interview with someone recently, a young person, that said, would you consider the UK a land of dreams? And the person said, yes, because a dream is what is inside your head. And a dream, how it becomes a manifestation to a reality, is based on the actions that you take after that. And therefore, you can create your pathway. You can create your dream space, I believe. You can create that big space. That when I was walking one time in the park, and I did a video calling A Walk in Nature, O'Neill, I saw all the trees all overlapping themselves. But then I saw something else, that they were all properly placed.
No, you're right, and I look at it this way. I'm an immigrant, came to this country, and I think Jamaicans, whether you're in the UK or you're in the US or you name the country,
yes,
we are created in this resiliences and never give up.
Yes.
If someone deny you the mountain, Jamaicans will find a way to get to the top of the mountain.
Yes.
I remember one of my uncle, who was the head of the telecommunication in Jamaica, and they had all these phone boxes all over the country. But guess what? Jamaicans figure out a way to get free call to whatever country. Right? It's like
when I came to the UK, somebody gave me some numbers.
Right? We figured out things, and so we have taken that when we come to countries like the US, and we have looked at it and say, you know what? Wherever we are is not a perfect country.
Yes.
But we're gonna figure out the brick that we're gonna leave.
Yes. Yes.
And we're gonna do the things that is gonna get us to the top of the mountain.
Yes.
Right. And that's what we have done. And we have avoided a lot of sort of getting involved in certain things because we have a lot of things that we need to do back in Jamaica. Right? We have mothers, we have grandmothers, we have uncles who are dependent on us for their existence. So we just get focused and we just do whatever we think. We just don't get caught up in the noise.
Listen, I have decided to treat life as very simple, a simple process. Just like the song by Lou Rawls said, nothing is wrong with the world, but it's a people that is in it.
Yeah.
And I listened to Kwame right there. Kwame is my good brethren. And he said institutional racism, institutional racism, institutional racism. And I say, power to the institutional racism, but there's more power to me.
No, you're right. And this is where the point I'm making, Silver, is like, we know there are impediments for us to advance, but somehow we figure out how to get around that impediment, right? we've figured out how to get over that impediment. You know, and I could list the amount of Jamaicans creating waves across the world, right? Because even though when you speak to each of those Jamaicans, they'll tell you how much potholes was in those roads.
Yes.
But they drop in the pothole and they just keep moving, right? And I think there's a certain amount of resilience that we Jamaicans and West Indians have that is different. And sometimes you kick us off the bike, even though we get the road scuff and everything, we get back up and we get on the bike again. And we keep
Yes. Listen, I believe, personally speaking, irrespective of white supremacists, racism, and all those sort of things, honestly speaking, I say still the sky is the limit. The sky is not even the limit. I say the sky is the start, ultimately. That's my central message to every single person, because I'm not going to stop and try to dissect the institutional racism. I'm going to cut out the path so others can follow through. That's my mantra. That's my call for this world. Onion.
I think that's some word. I am never gonna let one person define my existence and my success.
Yes.
When one person say no, a million will say yes. I will never let whatever you call yourself.
Yes.
Is gonna dictate my future.
Yes.
You're not God.
Yes.
Right? You're not God. And you could block my way, you could do whatever, I'm gonna figure it out. And I remember the one-armed pianist, and I'm blanking on his name right now. He's from the UK.
Yes.
And he talked about how he went to the Birmingham, I think, school. And the woman said to him when he got there, "What are you doing here? You only have one arm. Why you want to be a pianist?" And he got back on the bus and he was distraught. But he was like, why would I let one person define my destiny?
Yeah.
And guess what he did? He went back home, applied to the top school in London for arts. And guess what? He got in. And now he's one of the most renowned pianists in the world.
Yes.
But he could have let one person decide his fate.
Yes.
And he decided. And that's what I said. We as people of color, Black people, should not let one person define our fate.
Yes. Totally. And on that note, let's rock. O'Neill, listen, it was great. It was great. I see some people messaging me and saying it's a draw. And many people are saying that they were surprised that Peter Phillips came prepared. I think Peter Phillips could be this underdog. Watch your space. Anything can happen.
Yeah, exactly. Anything can happen. It's 50-50, and whoever, as I said, whoever get more the local turnout, but you're right. Peter Phillips was prepared, and who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, who knows? What we may do is, depending on how things are, we may try to do a session on the night of the election. Do a round table, if anything, O'Neill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I see Kwame, and I said, Kwame, you're totally right. But I think my point is, I'm not gonna let it stop me. Even though I get stopped for a million times, I'm gonna still go on. For me, it has become the point where nobody's gonna stop me.
Just because they stop you, that's not gonna stop you.
No, they're not going to stop me. You could stop me 50 times. Keep doing it, right? Yeah. Keep doing it.
Listen, I've been stopped, 3 times? The first time I was stopped was coming from a place called Blackheath, and police was, I think the children are in the car, my wife, and they said, "Oh, the police is following us," because the police saw us from Blackheath, and they parked up in Tesco's. No, they came beside me and said, "Is that your car?" I said, "Yes," and they told me to park up in Tesco's supermarket. It was a Sunday, and they said, "We're seeing that your car is not insured." And I said, "Nah, it's insured, man. I did it. I went on the phone and I told them to renew it. There's an automatic thing that they can renew
right,
if you don't say anything. And it was a Sunday, and the police said, well, Mr. Sida, I can't check it now, but check them out tomorrow because I see you're going home with your family and everything like that. And I called the next morning, O'Neill. The car wasn't insured. The insurance company did not do the thing which they should have done. So the lady said she's going to check the records and call me back, because I started to say, listen, man, the police almost locked me up, you know, and take me to court, you know what I mean, and separate me from my family, you know. And she checked it out. When she checked it out, she said, you're right. You did tell the guy to renew it automatically. They didn't do it. So what she did, she said, I'm going to send you a letter out for this Sunday, the day when they stop you, an indemnity letter to say that if anything happened, your car was insured.
Right.
So the police were right. Maybe it's a car that attracted them or whatever like that. Don't know. But as I just listen, you can have your perception, and I can have my perception based on my perception. But I just dealt with the facts. Let me deal with this issue. And the police was right.
Yeah.
Second time police stopped me one time was I was coming from a place called Blue Water, and I saw the main road where I wanted to go to the highway, and I didn't have a sat nav, and I just was gesticulating. Police stopped me and said, you seem like a bit lost. I said, you're right, I'm lost. And this was late in the night, about 12 o'clock. Actually, I was coming from a staff party in Bexley Village. And so he asked me to walk with, breathalyze me not to walk, you know. And I did the walk. And he said, anyhow, you're all right, you know. Anyhow, what you should do, keep this as a souvenir. He gave me the thing to keep this as a souvenir. And you know what he did? He guided me to the road, to the motorway.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you see, so I don't know. This is me, man. I've decided to do this. Make it simple. Keep life simple. That's it. People might say, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. I just keep life simple. Stop me 2 times, stop me 3 times. It doesn't matter. I keep going.
Exactly. It doesn't matter. You. My grandmother always say, you're gonna always in life come to 2 roads.
Yes.
One is gonna be a smooth road. You could pick that smooth road, but or you could take the road that has a lot of bumps and potholes.
Yeah.
That is where gonna drive and give you resiliency. People are gonna try to do whatever. And I just never, to your point, cops stop me. Sure, you stop me. There are things that they've done to me, and I'm like, okay, I get it. But I'm gonna fight you in the court system.
Yes.
Right. And that's how I have dealt with it. Yeah, and I get it. You know, there are others who have grown up in a different environment than I am. I happen to have a father who was a police officer. Right. I have family members who are police officers. Yeah, but for me, it's like nobody's gonna stop me. It's like you're not gonna stop me. You could do everything in life to try to stop me, but you're not gonna stop me.
I like that. That's a topic for that's my post I'm gonna put up tonight. Make sure you put it up. You're not gonna stop me. No, you're not gonna stop me.
It's like, sure, you're not gonna stop me.
You're not gonna stop us. Not gonna stop us. Yeah, and I think that's a word that lots of young people need to hear as well. You know, because we will easily focus on the reason why we're gonna get stopped, and that will stop us. But we just need to say, you're not gonna stop us.
Exactly.
Simple as that. Ani, bless you. Good night.
All right.
See you around, buddy. Cheers.
Cheers.
Wait, before you go, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight, all over wherever you are, because I know people have come on and people have gone, and thank you for being with us. And I think it's very crucial and important that from the diaspora as well, we have this interface to give our perspective as well in regards to the Jamaica election, because we care about Jamaica as much as possible. Even at the same time, we can criticize and we can either go at the leadership, but the only reason why we're here, for me, at 5 o'clock in the morning, getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning to be a part of it is because I do care. And as for Anil as well in Virginia, could have gone to his bed, but we do care about Jamaica and want to be a part of the whole process as well and to give our views. And that's important. And you all should do as well. And feel free to comment. And September the 3rd, make sure you go out and vote. Sorry, if you're in Jamaica, duh.
And I will add, wear your mask, hand sanitizer, social distancing.
Yeah, because what we say is in the UK we say control the virus. No, stay alert, control the virus, save lives. And as for me, I call COVID a terrorist. I tell you why I call him a terrorist, because in the UK when we had the Northern Ireland bombing, I came around that same time, and what they said that what you should do is look out for any parcels that you see, you know. But what the UK did was they resolved not to change their way of life, continue life as normal, but stay alert still. Look for any parcels, listen for any coded warnings that may come out, and listen to the police and move from the area. Because the Irish Northern Ireland normally give when they are the bombers, they normally give a code from a coded warning that takes you away from the area which you're going to bomb. And I think it's the same thing with COVID. Stay alert, control the virus, save lives, no matter what. But we got
wear
to
your mask.
Yeah.
Wear your mask.
Wear your mask.
Social distancing.
Peace out.
Peace out.
Cheers.
All right.
Bye-bye.